Most founders think they're one funnel away from 7 figures, but they're not. They're 1 month away from collapse because their business isn't built on anything real. It's built on emotion, on the most destructive emotion there might be, self-confidence, the gateway drug to spectacular failure. Self-confidence feels good until it buries you. See, most founders don't crash because they're not smart enough or they don't hustle hard enough. They crash because they confuse confidence with competence. You get a few wins, you think you've cracked the code, so you scale fast, spend fast, maybe even hire fast, but not because you're competent, not because you're good at what you do, but because you're drunk the same toxic advice all self-help gurus peddle. Just believe in yourself, bro. Fake it until you make it. Confidence is everything. But confidence isn't everything. It's dangerous. In fact, I like to say that misplaced self-confidence is like building a skyscraper on quicksand. First, it feeds your ego, then it drains your bank account, and finally, when it collapses, it breaks your will to try again. So if you've ever been stuck at 6 figures, telling yourself that the next 12-week sprint will change everything, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I've coached founders who do 30K a month and they appear absolutely elite on Twitter, but they're panicking behind the scenes because deep down, they know their growth is built on nothing else than vibes, not fundamentals. But there's a better way. One that not only feels better, but actually eventually guarantees success. But you know how it goes. First, you start a business, you land a few clients, you start thinking you've cracked the code. So you build a service, a product, maybe run some ads, send cold emails to sell it. Things start moving. You end up hiring a few people. Everything feels unstoppable until you hit a wall. That is when your little skyscraper eventually collapses. The reason is not that you didn't work hard enough, but that you misplaced your effort because you were not operating from what I call mastery. You were operating from momentum. That is the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. Confidence with no competence. You just know enough to be dangerous, but to yourself. That is the problem with self-confidence, that it is not based on anything tangible. It is a blind belief that you're entitled to success just because you have a fake it until you make it mindset, which can work until you meet someone who is actually good at what you're doing. And then they bury you. I've watched countless confident founders crash and burn because they believe the lie. Their downfall always follows the same pattern. Initial success breeds overconfidence. Overconfidence leads to overextension. Reality hits hard when facing truly elite operators and the house of cards collapses. That is what happens when you rely on self-confidence. You expect growth just because you showed up, and you make decisions based on how you feel, not what the data actually tells you. Elite founders don't do this. They don't build a business on quicksand. Instead of blindly believing they deserve success, they rely on a deeper skill. Research shows predict success with extraordinary accuracy, self-efficacy. Let me tell you about a guy that I will call Marcus. He is brilliant. He'd been running his business for 35 years. He was at a 10 million a year run rate. He was the definition of successful. But when COVID hit, everything fell apart. His industry changed overnight, and his old playbook stopped working. The problem is that he lost confidence, and every move he tried backfired. And he didn't care that much about losing revenue. He was terrified of going back to the poverty that he clawed his way out decades ago. He didn't want to let his team go, but he couldn't trust himself to lead through the chaos. In other words, COVID had turned solid ground beneath his skyscraper into quicksand, and he was frozen. Not because he lacked confidence, but because his confidence was built on conditions that no longer existed. That is when he reached out to me, when we started working together. And I taught him the framework you're about to learn. Within 6 months, he not only recovered his revenue, but he had a more resilient business that he'd had before. Not through confidence, through competence. Self-efficacy is the concept formulated by Albert Bandura. It means confidence in your ability to figure things out. It's not blind belief in yourself. It's earned trust in your problem-solving capacity. And it is vastly superior to self-confidence. Self-efficacy is context-dependent. The more expertise you have in a specific domain, the more self-efficacy you build. Therefore, the higher the results. And it's also reinforcing because you can track it with data and reinforce your subconscious patterns. In other words, you can track it, you can improve it, and you can systematize it. While average founders try to be good at everything, elite founders, relying on self-efficacy, they only focus on their zone of genius. They build systems to measure that. They delegate everything else and they make decisions based on data, not ego. In the brain, when you operate with self-confidence, you're relying on your emotional centers. When you operate with self-efficacy, you're engaging your problem-solving networks. One is fragile and mood-dependent. The other one is anti-fragile and evidence-based. Guess who wins. Self-efficacy, on top of it, compounds over time because every problem you solve strengthens your belief in your ability to solve the next one. Every system you build increases your capacity to build better systems. Every challenge you overcome expands your definition of what's possible. That is why elite founders bounce back from setbacks faster. They don't lose confidence when something fails because their self-worth is not tied to any single outcome. They trust their ability to figure out what went wrong and actually fix it. And here's how they do it. The first step is to have domain mastery. It's to choose 1 to 2 core areas to become a savage at. Don't spread yourself thin trying to master everything. Pick the domains that create the most leverage in your business. Go deep and let others dabble. While everybody else is trying to do everything, you become world-class at the 1 or 2 things that actually matter. And you start tracking your progress weekly. So you avoid relying on vibes and start relying on data. Step 2 is system creation. Once you have a playbook that works, you turn your expertise into repeatable processes. If you can't teach it to someone else, you don't really understand it. So the goal is to create a playbook, a step-by-step system that someone else can actually follow and optimize like a machine. And this pillar number 3 is data-driven improvement. Is defining what winning looks like. Is having clear, measurable criteria for success in each domain. Is having the discipline to review your progress every single week. Instead of blindly moving ahead based on confidence, you move ahead based on actual data. When you're emotional, you refer to data. When you're tired, you follow your system. And that is how you win. And that framework I just shared with you, domain mastery, system creation, data-driven improvement, that is just the beginning. The real transformation starts when you install a protocol that leverages your unique skills, because that is what most people get wrong. If you try to build self-efficacy in every domain at once, that is just self-confidence in disguise. The market does not care about how confident you feel. It rewards results, execution, proof, not hopes, not dreams, not positive thinking, results. And if you're done building your business on emotional quicksand, I invite you to a recording session with us because we're gonna understand exactly what systems are lacking in your mind, in your life, in your business, and how to actually start creating them. No fluff, no mindset work, no confidence building exercise, no rah-rah. Just a scientific protocol that's gonna rewire how you think and execute. So success isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Because what separates elite founders from everyone else is that they don't hope for success, they engineer it. They don't rely on confidence, they build competence. They don't fake it until they make it through mastery. In other words, they deserve it. And every setback is just a data point, not an identity threat. Every challenge is a puzzle to solve, not a wall to fear. And uncertainty is an opportunity for growth, not paralysis. The version of you that operates with unshakable self-efficacy already exists. You just need to start building competence, one system at a time. Your decoding session is the first step towards meeting that version. Apply now.